Welcome to EasyClear, your one-stop software solution. Our goal is to uniform the supply chain along all modalities into one platform. This is inclusive of Transnet, customs services, and IATA, along with cross-border and transit into upper African countries. We offer system as a service that allow easy-to-use transitions between the forwarding, RCG, clearance, invoicing with disbursements, reporting, and bulk interactions. Follow me into the agent industry with your host, Devin Few.
The meeting. So today we're going through the road freight manifest. Now, manifest can also be utilized for sea freight type entries and air freight type entries if needs be, depending on your company's requirements as well. I just want to confirm that my audio settings are okay before we proceed. Well, it does look like to be on the right audio channel right there. Get the audio feedback correct. Brilliant. Righty, so to log on to EasyClear, obviously, that'll just be easyclearx.co.za as our website. So you'll take note that it is a HTTPS website, which is a secure website. And then we'll provide you with a username and password for your company login, or more preferably, put those details in for you to comply with the POPI Act and keep things secure. All right, once you have your username and password, you'll therefore log on to your company. Now, normally we would be logging into the EasyClear company here, but for this scenario here, I'm going to be logging into RCG if I wanted to do a air freight type HAB type manifest or anything else like that, but that'll leave for the RCG session. For now, I'm just going to purely stick to road freight type manifests. And if we do change it to air freight or sea freight, so therefore I'll be logging into the EasyClear company, depending on the confirmation and the setup per customs. You yourself would find that you'd have one profile, but in turn you can actually have multiple profiles registered with customs if needs be, depending on your business requirements. All right, so we'll log into EasyClear operations, Devon Few. Some very low chair there. All right, and then use the password. Fantastic. So when the browser asked me would I have to remember the password, I'm going to tell the browser no, as I don't want it to forget the original company password that I had put in. Now you'll note most of my training is done on Microsoft Chrome, but at this moment for Manifest, I'm just going to utilize the Opera. It doesn't matter which browser you do use when using EasyClear, just the preferred method is please try your best to avoid Internet Explorer, as I've noticed quite a lot of issues on that browser. The rest of the browsers do seem to be fine though. All right, so manifests. Manifest is twofold. Either you're going to be doing an import manifest or an export manifest. Based on that scenario, you can also do a manifest that includes a direction of both, where you may be exporting goods, but there's also imported items on that manifest, but it will still be an export manifest, or vice versa for the both direction on the importing a manifest. So at this point, if you've done your export clearance file, your import clearance file, you've got the master number, then you can go over and then build your manifests for customs. Now, before we go ahead and build a manifest for customs, I do like to do a preliminary search just to find out if I use a specific master number, what are the file numbers that are automatically going to pull through to the manifest based on the fact that it's the same manifest number, which will be compliant with customs. So I'd like to also go into clearing export bill of entry, or alternatively, the advanced search function. I prefer the clearing export bill of entry screen, as I can immediately see what's the EDI status on the screen, because obviously a manifest will not work with customs if the entry is still sitting on ready for cash payment, be it an import entry or query for supporting documents where the case is not finalized and it doesn't say proceed to border. You can still have an open case and proceed to border in some cases, but those are few and far between. All right. So if I had to press search over here and just look for a basic road freight type entry, in regards to that road freight type entry, um, if I had to just validate that that was the master number, I'm just pressing a preliminary search here just to have a look at some of the items on here. So if I look at this ELG type shipments for this one over here, I can see it's a transfer mode 3. My road freight manifest number is QFMAN001. And within regards to EasyClear, double check when you're doing your export declaration that you insert a road note number. We can default that as a setting from EasyClear to automatically copy it from the file number when it's generated to populate here. As if the road note number is blank here, and this file pulls through to the manifest house number is going to be blank because the road note number was blank. So please, if you do leave a blank here, make sure it's populated on the manifest manually for a successful manifest to go through. Or if you don't feel like populating the 1,000 house lines on the manifest, then just make certain you insert the road note number. So it's not going to be blank and give you a rejection of the manifest. All right. So based on that one, I can see my manifest number, QFMAN001. And normally a manifest number would include the master carrier code in front of the manifest number. It's good practice to have it that way. Okay, so I'm just going to do a search quickly. So I'll do manifest number as my search, type in the manifest number, and then it should show me a list of files that have the same manifest number. So if I go over just to a random secondary file here, just change this to transfer mode 3, for instance. I'm just using this as a test file, just to bring it through as well. Truck and trailer, so it'll coming in by road. And then we're going to put this to the same manifest number and save. Cool. Master carrier code invalid for road freight type entry. So let's use DHL. Cool, because obviously you would know your master carrier code. I'm just preparing this file so we can have 2 house lines on our manifest there automatically. The password must have changed. It's going to specify a new account where I know the password. So you'll see if you have to bypass the master carrier code, you have to put in administrative details to bypass it. Truck and trailer, I should just be able to ignore that and then go ahead and press the save button. Reviewing my manifest number here again, then I can see at least on save, when the master carrier code was populated, it should have pulled the master carrier code first and then the rest of the manifest number. So based on that one, I'll show you what happens when you do have a discrepancy. You should technically do a VOC on that to amend the manifest number to be correct if you're noticing that the manifest number for the first entry and the second entry don't actually correspond 100%. So this is a good way to just double check what are the lines that are going to pull through. So you know that maybe you have 20 entries. You come to the exports registration screen, just to the search menu, search for manifest number. You'll note I put in a percentage before the rest of my manifest number. So we can see that both files that we now have prepared have pulled through, but the manifest number from the first one and the second one differ because it should be the master carrier code followed by your manifest number to make it whole. But if you do make a mistake like this, just remember to do a VOC. But if you're in a rush, then um, there's no time to do that VOC, or maybe the instance is it's going to hit query for supporting documents. You need it to go across the border and then you can do your VOC later. So it doesn't hold up the process or doesn't hold up the truck. So depending on the situation and what SARS called for at the time, that is also another way to get around those situations. Your manifest number is technically correct, but unfortunately, when you want to build it, you're going to have to do a recorrection of that manifest number for the secondary item so that everything can be sorted and customers will be happy that the manifest numbers correspond to the RCG requirements. So as I say, during a VOC here, that entry might go to query for supporting docs. The driver reaches the border and then he's stuck for a whole evening. So it might be in the best interest to say, do the VOC after he's left the border post, just to try and save time and money, especially standing time. Alrighty. So I'd like to see that one entry was worksheet printed, not released by customs, and then the other entry is proceed to border. When you are building your manifest, we'll go to manifest there. When you're building your manifests, I do prefer that you search for the manifest first to make certain, does the manifest already exist in the system? And if so, is all the house lines on there? Has it gone through? So you'll see this test manifest that I've already drafted in preparation for this, only as the first house line. And furthermore to that, it already, it has a reject to clearer, so we can amend this one. With Manifest, EasyClear has made life very, very simple at the moment. So if you have a reject to clearer or proceed to border and you still have to do amendments, you don't need administrative privileges to unlock a manifest. You can just press the padlock picture that shows you, would you like to unlock it? Because obviously on top, it shows the file number. The file is definitely locked. All right, so I've just added full screen. So then we'll go over here, unlock the file. So pressing that immediately, I can see that the file is unlocked. Right, and then we're going to go and rebuild the manifest. Now, you will take notes that all the details are here, right through to BBR and Harare, from Durban to Harare through Bytebridge. But if I go ahead, grab this manifest number and press the rebuild button, you'll see that at least all those details stay. So you can at one point insert the information manually, press the save and then press the build button. But if you don't press the save before you press build, the information you try to put in manually might disappear. All right, so please press save first. And then you'll see that the manifest number that did correspond to this entry here did pull through automatically, but the other manifest number did not. So you can use this orange button to go ahead and pull that secondary file number, one result. And because we don't recall what that file number was, that's where I showed you from the export screen. We can search for the manifest number and just identify, what was that file number? In this case, 123 tests is the other file I want to pull through to that manifest. So we'll go back to the home. Manifest, it's always good to just double check your manifests files before pulling them through to make certain you're pulling through the whole bunch. 123 test is the file that we wanted. Now, when you're doing a search, we don't mind using lowercase letters, but when you are saving an item for customs, please use uppercase. So I can see my files there using the orange button. I search for it specifically. I tick the box, and now you can see I've already got 2 house lines. Alrighty. So because that information wasn't actually submitted to customs, you'll also take note that the bill of entry number is not there. So please don't try and submit a file to customs unless you know the bill of entry number is there and it is in a complete statement with customs per the file before the manifest is done. So that was just a preliminary check. For the moment, I'm going to restart a manifest from scratch as if we were doing a handover type shipment. So I'm going to look for one file's manifest number that does exist. So we'll reframe this manifest using the test file and using its full manifest number. And then we're also going to add an additional file from a handover agent as well, where obviously that will not be in the system due to the fact that it wasn't registered by your business. Right, so we'll just run a full search on that full file number. We can see that there's no results. I always like to search for the file first, just to make sure I'm not doing anything funny there. Then I'll press add file. The very first thing when you're doing on any type of manifest where you know you've done the clearance file yourself, put in the manifest number and immediately press the green button that says build. This should be step number 1 when you're adding a brand new manifest into the system. Then you will take note, just try and make certain the header details correct. Like if this is an export manifest, it's going to be a northbound selection. My transfer mode is 3. You will take notes for some clients who forget to insert the transport mode that they ask where the driver information is. Now, at the moment, it's defaulted to shipper because the transport mode here is blank. So we do get calls sometimes asking, where do I put my driver information, where the user has forgotten when adding a manifest completely from scratch to put in the transfer mode. And now you'll see that I've changed the transfer mode to 3. I've now got the driver information. If you would like to utilize the manifest screen for RCG compliancy, it's not recommended, but sometimes some ways it does make life a bit easier for those of you who wish to choose to do so. So if we do transfer mode 4, we can see that there's a shipper, forwarder, carrier. If we do transfer mode 1, those details stay the same, but then it's going to ask you for ship name and voyage number below. Transfer mode 2 obviously will ask you for rail. Transfer mode 3 will ask you for truck and trailer details and driver. And then just transfer mode 4 will just ask you for the flight details. So you can do the multi-modalities here, but unless instructed otherwise by your management and preferably guided by the EasyClear, please rather keep transfer mode 4 and transfer mode 1 in the RCG segment. So in other words, I'll just go back and give you a squiz of that. In the RCG segment for the cargo reporting known as CUSCAR reporting. All right. That is the only portion for CUSCAR that can be pulled to manifest as well, but it's preferred to remain there for RCG. Please keep it that way, unless derived otherwise. All right, so let's go back to our file over here. So because we pressed the build button, we can really see the file is saved, but if I had to press the save button again, it is going to tell me the driver and forwarder are mandatory. Those two need to please be inserted, but always work from the top down. Right, so what type of manifest direction will this be? It's a northbound, in other words, it started in South Africa and is leaving the country. If you have a southbound manifest, for instance, it's coming from Maputo, then it could be a southbound from Maputo, South Africa, final destination, done. If you have a mixed mode is when you have, in this case, you can have an ELG or an EIG, inclusive with an RIT and RIB. That would definitely be mixed mode because your ELG would fall under the export LRN side for the house lines, but the RIB entry will fall under the import LRN number on the house lines. So it's quite nice to actually comply as EasyClear's scenario to say, how do I know when something falls under the import side or the export side when I reach down to the bottom of my house lines? Because we have a export side and then we have an import side. If you registered the file within EasyClear yourself, it will automatically land up where it belongs. But if you're doing a handover shipment, you've got to manually choose the exact one in accordance. Now, there's a nice way I like to think about how do we actually do this. The very simple method is if you were to go into clearance import or clearance export and you press, oh, wrong button, and you press add a file. I'm under the imports module at the moment. Sorry. And under the imports module, I can see all the duty types that fall under the import side. So EasyClear's already got it associated to say, if I'm doing any one of these duty types on the manifest, CCA, just be careful because obviously it's 4,000 up for your imports and 1,000 up until 4,000, not inclusive of, for your exports. So it's only one that might be misconstrued, but for the rest of the items, they're all in the import bill of entry. So thus my manifest house line is going to fall under the imports LRN side. Same thing can be said for exports. So if you're uncertain, just have a look at the list, what belongs for imports, what belongs for exports, and then you can identify when framing your manifest, do I insert this on the import side or do I insert it based on my duty type on the export side? Because if it's wrong, then customs obviously will reject that. So choosing your manifest direction is very, very important. When you only have, say, for instance, one XE, one XRB, or one RRT ship house line on your manifest, then it's purely noted as a transit shipment. It came in the country via Durban and then left the country via road freight via Beitbridge or Komatipoort. That would be your transit, a manifest non-inclusive of other entries such as ELG or DP type entries. All right, for this one specifically, it is a northbound type entry. The manifest number, 99% of our clients do leave this blank. This field is more for your internal purposes, so that if you want to run specific reports for manifest, you can have a manifest number tracking system that might help you associate which manifest belonged to which routing, did the tracking go through. Yeah, you can use that field to your business's purposes, but for customs purpose, you can just leave it blank. Next item is the call purpose. Call purpose is a physical scenario. If I'm sending the goods out the country, I'm going to be putting a box onto the truck, loading the cargo, and then the truck goes out the country in order for it to reach its destination. So northbound entries will always be loading cargo onto the truck, because in a physical scenario, you can't unload the cargo and then send the truck. Then the box is kind of still in the South Africa. What's the point of the manifest? All right, so please make certain it is loading cargo for export entries. And then when you're doing a southbound entry, it will always be unloading the cargo. If you have mixed mode, you could have export items. The truck is starting in South Africa and moving out. So therefore you can say, okay, cool. Mixed mode can be export scenario, loading cargo, or mixed mode can be unloading cargo because the truck may have started in Maputo into South Africa. So please take note under mix, that's the only one where you can specify which is which, determined, but northbound will always be loading cargo to send it out. Cool. Next is the file number. If you want to provide the manifest with its own unique file number on top of everything else, you can do, or you can just leave it blank. The driver detail. Now, this is where a lot of you do get stuck in regards to adding the driver information based on their passport. Some passports, so if my driver was from Swaziland and their passport was issued, say, for instance, 2001, if it even goes back that far, not already expired, 2001, I'm just going to say that this is my test driver one. Customs do prefer name and surname. They have asked multiple people to please leave out the middle name. They only really want provision for name and surname. We don't require the middleman, and neither does customs. Middle name, sorry, and neither does customs. So just to make certain that this driver is not already in the system, I remove the last characters and I've just pressed the tab button, allowing the system to do its preliminary search, which seems to be taking a long time. Okay, and I see that there's 3 drivers already in the system. I would very much like to add a new driver just to show you that my Swaziland driver is definitely not in the system because I can see per my search. So I'll add the driver full name over here and then I'll press the plus button. On the plus button, I can already see that the driver tick box has already been ticked. So I don't need to retick any of the boxes above. I can just proceed and scroll further down. Now, because this is the first time I'm adding the driver, I'm able to just amend the name slightly, just in case to make it 100% accurate. But after I press the save option or the blue option, the driver name will be saved. I cannot edit it thereafter. I would need to delete this driver and re-add a new one if I needed to edit it. Cool. You can provide the driver with a shortcode or link to shortcode. I just like to put in the address, inclusive of is the driver male or female? What is the travel type? So are they a permanent residence holder, normal South African, normal foreigner, or normal contract worker? So in the regards for normal contract worker, his nationality was Swaziland. So Swaziland on the passport nowadays, if you look at a 2001 and 2016 passport or older, their passport, the gold writing that writes along the passport might still say SWZ. But if I'm not mistaken, was it 2018? Swaziland was renamed to Eswatini. So based on the Eswatini is the full country name, but we do know the new passports being issued is ESW. So Swaziland is no longer SWZ per the passports you might be seeing. It now is ESW. Okay. The travel document number, that is the travel document number the driver would be providing to you. Uh, okay, I've just inserted the travel document number there. If he was a normal South African, I would have had to insert the RSA ID. That would be mandatory, but in this case, he's a normal foreign contract worker. So therefore, there wouldn't be an RSA ID. His date of birth based on the passports. Let's make it 1981, 0220, so the 20th of February 1981. If you do note that your date order says day, month, year, that's perfectly fine. To understand how EasyClear works based on that, if it's month, day, year, and you confuse the month and the day, maybe just click on the calendar instead. Choose the date so you can see, it's month, day, year in regards to that. The only reason why that might happen is because your computer's date and time settings are set to that specific standard, whereas mine is always set to year, month, day. All right, if you'd like to change it, just speak to your nearest IT department. They might hold precedence as to what your computer is allowed to do. If you don't have an IT department and you still don't know how to change it, just give us a buzz. We can definitely help you accommodate that as well. All right, travel doc country of issue. So if you are a multi-resident holder, so you have a South African passport and a foreign passport, pick one. Customs don't allow you to have multiple countries or country of residence on both. So if I was to say Eswatini is my nationality, but my country of residence is ZAR, you've got a dual passport registration scenario going on there. Pick one. All right. Don't try and use both. Travel doc country of issue. So we're going to utilize ESW for Eswatini. Travel doc expiry date. Let's make this to 2025 0101. Reason for movement, work, and then country of residence, ESW. So I'm not going to label this ZAR at the end, as customs are going to see the mismatch and automatically reject it. So please pick one of the countries, pick one passport to use, not the dual citizenship. And then last but not least, if the phone number is available, you can insert it, but it's not necessary. All right, then I'm just going to press the save button over here, and then I've just added my driver. So just for those of you who are waiting on the videos and would like to take a screenshot now, you're more than welcome to, as this is generally the stock standard process of how you would add your driver information. Fantastic. All right, let's carry on with the session for the manifest. Now, as per most scenarios, the crew, is somebody going to be sitting next to the driver? You would add the details of the crew exactly the same as the driver with his passport details of the person sitting next to the driver, of course. But if there's somebody sitting next to the driver, they reach the border, but the crew member is not on the manifest, 99% of the time they would have to actually get out the truck, walk across the border, and then get back in the truck thereafter. So that is a way to bypass the scenario if you have failed to put in the crew accordingly. But if there's nobody sitting next to the driver, then that field can be left blank. All right, then the forwarder. I'm just going to mark the forwarder off as the first one that I pick up here. The forwarder would most likely be you as the agent, your company, your business. So that would be your forwarder information, you as the agent. And then the carrier, there's so many trucks to choose from. I'm just going to use DHL. So we can have DHL or whoever's registered as well in the system. If they're not registered, then just know what is their name, and then you can always add them into the system. So say, for instance, if there was a DHL situation, then I can choose them accordingly. I see they're not registered in the system. So the DHL, I can see that's the carrier code right there on top. And this, as to why they're not registered in the system, this carrier code here is part of the client maintenance that you control as a forwarder transporter for your agreed forwarder transporters, where later on in the system you can also go ahead and add calculations into the invoicing module for calculations per volume, tonnage, or whatever the case may be, based on your forwarder calculations, which is why we actually ask you to add it to the system so that it can be used for additional calculations on your invoicing level or whatever else you may require it for. So it's obviously just DHL. What's the customs code? I don't need an address technically for that one. Saved. All right. Then the truck and trailer details. So on my declaration, I had inserted road. Per customs completion of declaration, that is allowed, but the truck and trailer details actually have to be correct in the manifest. And then technically you should go back to the export declaration and do a VOC on top of it to update the truck and trailer details to also be correct. That would be 100% prize winning scenarios for customs. Otherwise, they might pick it up later. So yeah, please be very wary and careful of those as well. So truck and trailer details, 23 TD 51 GP. So it'll be my truck, what's my horse, and my carriage, truck and trailer. If it's 18-wheeler, I would expect truck, trailer, and trailer. I do notice a lot of clients are not inserting the registration plate number. They would go ahead and try and say Roadworks, being that that's the trucking company name, and then they try and insert the registration number of it, getting an error in message with customs because that is not a valid GP license plate. So please make certain that you're only using the license plate of the vehicle when you insert in this information, as it's physical truck and trailer details right there. It can't be the name of the company. The name of the company is already associated because you've given customs the master carrier code. The master carrier code tells me this is a DHL shipment. All right. The cargo carrier code, that would most commonly be you or the responsible party of the boxes on the truck. So that is the cargo carrier code. And you can see that the information is already pulled through automatically from the file when I built the manifest. I can see place of issue Johannesburg. Now, please, when you're doing a manifest, customs are only interested in the South African leg. So if you had to do an RRT or a transit shipment or a warehousing shipment that came in via sea freight, its origin was Shanghai, it came into South Africa, got loaded onto a truck, and then goes out to Maputo or whatever the case may be, your origin is still a place in South Africa. So that you always need to think about it that way. South Africa has to be, for an export, a place in South Africa needs to be your origin. And for imports, a destination in South Africa has to be your final destination or discharge. If you know it's leaving the country after it comes into the country, that doesn't matter for a manifest because you're telling the customs border officials how is it coming into the country, where is it going to in South Africa, and then a next entry for when it goes out. Or alternatively for the export, where does it start in South Africa in order to go out the country, regardless of how it got to South Africa in the first place. All right, so one of these destinations have to be a city in South Africa. All right, then we'll say, cool, the truck's generally not going to swim over to Shanghai. I'm just going to change it to Maputo. It pulled that information from the file as test information, but we know this driver is going from here to Maputo. If my export declaration didn't precisely match to that, I would do a VOC on it, changing the final destination, of course. All right, so destination 1, 2, and 3. Destination 1, 2, and 3 is more likely to say, cool, it might go to Maputo, but then after that, it might be ending up in Angola or final destination Cairo. So that's what you can do as the routing, as the destinations, but customs are really interested in the final destination and the leg that involves South Africa. All right. Then we have your estimated arrival date. So when you're estimating that's going to arrive to its destination, and then the place of issue date when the documentation was done. Next in line is the cargo type. As per the cargo type, you please need to select it from the list. If you select containerized cargo, I believe customs did bring out a rule that RIB shipments and ELG shipments can't be in the same container when it's a road freight manifest. So you would have to split that accordingly as to multiple different manifests. Then we have the break bulk, Maputo, final destination Maputo, and the port of exit. Well, the truck's not exactly going to swim to Maputo, so I'm going to just change that through Beitbridge, Komatipoort, or Skilpatek, whatever the shortest distance between here and Maputo might be. That's the border post I'm going to use. Or there might be a reason why the driver might drive from the western side of South Africa or the far west just to drive back to the east. Maybe there's other deliveries to make as well along the way. All right. So if you do choose container type, please make certain you insert your containers, as well as at this point, I'm just going to press the save button and I would insert my containers in accordance to this. So I know this is not containerized cargo, but I'm just going to add a container here just to show you what's going to happen when I do have containerized cargo. CL number, gross weights, depot code 17, and then 1 by what's the weight, 100, 10, or the volume, I need that, and then 100. So I don't need to insert the dimensions or anything like that, and press the save button. I'm just ignoring the falsified container number. Obviously, you would need to use the correct container number. Orange button to close that. All right, so if it was containerized cargo, I would specify the container details. I'm just showing you what I would normally do if I do have a container, what I can do on the house line. So for the house line, before I start working on line number 1, we have a tendency to just jump into the house line, start editing and press save, but you'll notice, look at the package type. A browser automatically selects a top one from any drop-down list. So please make certain you click on the item first, and then you'll see my package type is actually package. It's purely because the browser on line number 1 is selecting the drop-down in accordance to this. Now, if I specify this one over here as container, I can also add in my container numbers down below. But I just want to jump up to the top package type, hit the container, press the save button as if it were a containerized cargo, and then I can insert my containers over here to match the containerized cargo as well. But I know this was package, so I'm just going to leave it as a standardized package. Remove the container on top, and select the item first, sorry, and then press the delete button. Cool. So I've reverted this item back to how it was. So you can see how versatile the system is by going backwards and forwards like that, just to change it to be 100% correct. But if you know exactly what you're doing going forward, then use the shortest method, double check your header, save, double check your house line, everything's in order, save it, and submit. In this case, this house line wasn't successfully submitted to customs. So 1, 2, 6, 7, I'm just inserting rejected bill of entry number there. So obviously this will only be successful on the manifest level if the declaration level was successful as well. Export bill of entry dates 22/09/29. Now I can see EIG. Do not untick the manifested item. That box just removes it or makes it declared on the manifest. The entry still goes to customs, but customs can kind of see, oh, you've declared it, but manifest is unticked. So you mentioned the box might not be on the truck. So just double check that it is always ticked, please. Then we have our CPC code 6000 that pulled through, our exporter name that pulled through, consignee, number of package, package types, your package description, your gross weight, your customs value, And then the most Confucius scenario ever is the cargo status. So I'm just going to save this line first, and then I'm going to ask for your full attention in this next portion over here. A cargo status, full, part, or final part of shipment. Now, a lot of people who are using cargo status for RCG, be it the actual air freight reporting, sea freight reporting, or let alone road freight reporting, part shipments does not mean FCL or LCL. Please do not misconstrue the two differences. FCL, full container load, LCL, less container load, might have multiple designated points because one package belongs to Durban, one package belongs to Cape Town, one package belongs to Joburg. It doesn't matter. Under that condition, your cargo status is full for that LCL type shipment purely because when it comes to South Africa, all the packages expected to be in the container are in the container. The part shipment, now I explain part specifically for the road freight entry we are doing here. I could have a part shipment where there's multiple trucks involved. So I'll create my manifest, my very first manifest like this with my driver number 1. I'll therefore go ahead and create a brand new manifest followed by the letter /A at the end. Insert all the same information other than the fact that that's driver number 2. Driver number 1 has the manifest that I've marked off as part, and there's only one bill of entry number across the 2 trucks. Or let's say there's 2. The one bill of entry number goes across both trucks, and then the other bill of entry number is only sitting on truck number 2. So my first manifest with this bill of entry number here is the part. He is the first one in convoy, or at least if there's 6 trucks, it should be part, and final part of shipment. And they must arrive at the border post in convoy. So I'll say there's 2 trucks over here. This truck over here has this bill of entry number. The truck is packed to the brink. You can't fit any more. I'm going to have to hire another truck to fit the rest of the bill of entry onto that truck as well. Plus, there's a little bit of space for another package. So the part shipment here is indicated to say, this is the first driver with the first manifest with a partial scenario of the bill of entry number. Cool. I would submit this to customs, get my proceed to border, but also at the same time, I like to prepare my next file first. So the next scenario is really manual. So if you have 6 trucks, it does create quite the process here, but I've created my first manifest. Then I go back to the search option and I press add. Then I'm going to create my second manifest. I like to just make it manifest A/A or just A at the end. If I were to use the build button, nothing's going to come through because technically manifest A doesn't correspond to the entry, so nothing pulls through. So it is quite nice at the same time to maybe have the information available on hand so that you can reinsert that information back onto the manifest. All right, so loading cargo. See over here, I'm adding it manually. I've skipped the transfer mode, so now there we go. There is your driver. Test driver 1 and 2, 3. Who's the forwarder? I'll use the test forwarder. Then he'll be the carrier, the DHL that we added earlier. So they're adding truck number 1 and truck number 2. Right, the truck number 2 will be 75 HC 76 GP, and then whatever the trailer, if I can spell, trailer GP number is. And if there's a further carriage as well, just make certain you actually insert the registration plate in regards to these fields over here. The SOB date, So shipped on board dates and all the rest. If I try and press save now and try and look at what was the other one, I cannot identify that. So you might have wanted to do a printout just to have it in front of you so that you can reinsert this information. But you can't save it just to go back and check. So I'm just going to insert the information that I do potentially have, go back, check the dates, and then reinsert that accordingly. Port of loading, Johannesburg. So I just type in JOHA and it should resolve to Johannesburg. If I just type in JOH, I will get what? John F. Kennedy, Johannesburg, and Johnson. So I do like to potentially type in most of the names so that the system can resolve the rest. Try and let the system resolve the rest whenever there is a magnifying glass. The master carrier code, we know it's going to be the DHL code. And then the cargo carrier code, 003. So I can see that if I try and search for the carrier code precisely, it won't come up. But if I were to actually look for the carrier code via their name, then I can hit the search over here. Okay. Estimated arrival dates, that's going to be arriving tomorrow. Place of issue, Johannesburg. So ports of loading might have actually been Durban, for instance, because the goods are coming from Durban, but I'm doing the documentation in Johannesburg. Okay, so that's the difference between those two fields. That's why there is two of them. Place of issue date, well, documentation date, well, that's quite the year, 2022, 10/06. Cargo type is breakbulk, so that will be the documentation date, the type of goods. Destination is the city in Mozambique, Maputo. Then the final discharge port, well, Maputo. Port of exit, we're going to go through Beitbridge, so that'll be our BBR. And then is there any container or serial numbers from there? So it's just to save the heading. I'll go back and compare this to my other manifest as well and confirm that those dates match the very first manifest date as well. Just inserted that to make certain we can save it without error. Then over here we see, oh, wait, none of the house lines pulled through. Can I either add the house line manually or import the house line using the orange button as long as the clearance file was done on your system? So based on that house line, we know that that was the manifest number. So I'll just go back over to the house line, searching by master number, and just be like, oh, the manifest number the file number 123 test. So I can go back to my manifest, confirming that's the one I wanted to pull through. See the latest one I framed is on top. And then I can go to the orange button and pull it through. So the same scenario falls under RCG when you have, 123 test. When you have RCG and you have a scenario where the goods are coming on one vessel, but they forgot a package behind, so then they're sending the last of the package across there. Hence, you'll have your part of the shipment received, and then your final part of the shipment coming back later. And it doesn't matter if it's FCL, LCL, that is the situation that customs have explained during the SAF meetings. It's on their website explaining it in great detail. So please do try and comply to that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One too many characters there. Bill of entry dates. So obviously the file wasn't released, so I'm just inserting information as I have. Okay. And then this is not the full because this will be the final part of shipment. So exactly that. You have a part shipment where this bill of entry number here is packed across two different trucks with two completely separate drivers. So your driver will be the same driver can't drive both trucks unless it's a very, very fancy truck. But no, you would have two different drivers, two different passport numbers, and that's why customs will ask you if there is a convoy type scenario going on there, you will require the first truck to go through as the part shipment, and then the other truck must be behind the queue to say that's the final part of shipment. If the final part of shipment truck driver goes to the border first, you are going to struggle to get the other truck to get across the border itself. All right. And then we go ahead and say, okay, at this point, we also had a handover shipment. The handover shipment can't fit on truck 1, so let's add it to truck 2. There's a little bit of space there. It can fit. So we'll go, okay, cool. The handover shipment, I'll just call this handover 001. House number, let's use their house number that they provided. Port of loading, Johannesburg. Destination, Maputo. And then this is also an ELG type shipment. So I'm going to say nothing on the import side, but the export side, we'll call this came in via DBN 2022-1001, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. Which makes up my full LRN number, local reference number, serial number. You will take notes that it's the customs code first, the office code, the year, followed by the month, followed by the day, and then as per the service provider, it's system generated last 6 digits of the serial numbers generated from EasyClear or any service provider that you're using. And yeah, when that number changes, meantime on the printouts, if it does change, that's why any record can divulge and see exactly when and how this was created, or even if it was created from your system accordingly. So those last 6 digits are very important, as that adds a technical touch to it, allowing EasyClear to track the file precisely. If that number changed, then we can also verify why, how, and where. Cool. Export agents, I'm just going to specify this as the same customs code from in front. Export bill of entry number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the bill of entry date and 2/10/01. The duty type was an ELG, CPC code of your 6000. Now remember, I'm reading this from the handover documentation provided to me. The exporter, who would be the exporter? I'm using one that's registered in the system. If it wasn't registered, you can add the name, press the plus button, and then just insert the name, address, and their customs code. VAT number, not necessary for manifests, so just to the customs code should be perfect. Okay, then we'll go over to consignee. So I can see there is a test consignee in the system. Number of packages 1. What is the type of package? So I can either use the drop down, or say, for instance, I wanted to choose matte, I can type in the drop down MA and it chooses matte, or PAC and it chooses package. Then I press the tab button to go to the next field. Package description, we can call this a empty box, but it might be close or something within the box. The best description and short description always helps. The gross mass is 5 kilograms. It will always be in kilograms, please. Customs value 120, and then the cargo status here. Well, the cargo status here is full, and this is number 1 prize, because why is this one full and the other one part and final part? The main reason to that is this package with this bill of entry number is only on truck number 2. Nothing of this bill of entry resides on truck number 1. So if you look at the documentation to see, okay, the documentation reads bill of entry 1 is packed on truck 1 and truck 2, and bill of entry line number 2 is packed on truck 2 only. So per the documentation, I already know how the trucks are packed without even looking at the trucks. And that's how customs envisions how their system works, corresponding back to their requirements within the EasyClear system as well. So you always think of it as a visual interface to say, if I read the documentation, I should already know how the trucks are packed without looking at the trucks. And that's how customs are generally auditing the items as well. So please don't misconstrue the cargo status with anything other than how is it physically packed. All right. Furthermore, you can add special instructions, nature and quantity of the goods if you're doing air freight type shipments, or for sea freights and road freights, you're more than welcome to use the box, but it doesn't go to customs, but it can go on any type of printouts. Before I submit this to customs, I can do a MPR manifest printer here, which will give me a draft of the NPR manifest in order to show me potentially this is what I'm submitting to customs. So this will be the final part of shipment for driver number 2. And then I can go ahead and say, okay, I can go and EDR this file. But be careful of the order that you EDR the files as well. This one is the final part of shipment, so technically I want to go back to the first entry and submit the first part of the shipment. So in order, how it's going to reach the border is how I like to EDR the entry as well. I think customs is mandatory on that as well. I haven't triple checked on their functionality, but yeah, please keep it in the order as to this is how the drivers are going to reach the border, and the drivers need to stick to that order as well. Only when they reach the border, please. So then I can go here and create. My EDR message is created and send this off to customs. Then I'll go ahead and create the EDR message for the manifest number A, and I'll create that one as well and send it off. They both hit proceed to border. Then you note, oh dear, the driver cannot make it. We need to change the driver, but the new driver's already driven to the border, scanned the barcode, and you've got your entry arrival notification, but they're not letting the driver through because the driver name on the manifest doesn't match the actual new driver for the truck. So at that point, you need to change, maybe for instance, not truck number 1, that driver is still okay, but truck number 2. Truck number 2 may be on proceed to border, but it might not go through because the convoy scenario of truck number 1 has already been marked for arrival. You might need to ask customs to allow you to do a whole new set of manifest, a whole new set of documents for your manifests. All right. And then we can just go to the EDR send and receive. Hit the synchronization that will send the pending upload. So I'm sending file number 1 first, and then I'll jump over to file number A and send that one as well. But as mentioned, if this one's already marked as entry arrival notification, I'm expecting a rejection here because the file I'm using doesn't technically have a proceed to border. Then you need to ask customs permission that you're going to be changing the driver. You've already been marked for arrival. Can you please have permission to do a whole new set of manifest documents with a new manifest number? So you'd go back to your declarations first. You do a VOC on those declarations, amending the manifest number only. From there, the manifests that are marked for arrival, they're going to be stuck in limbo. You can't do anything about them. You then create a brand new manifest using the new manifest numbers for those proceed to borders, and then you can send those through to customs as the brand new manifest, because obviously anything that's marked for entry arrival notification or entry exit notification, customs do not allow you to do an amendment. Right, so once this is proceed to border, I would go over to file number A and submit that one as well. If you do get a rejection, I like to review the rejections by clicking on the description. Most people go to the prints and they print the paperless release. If you do have a barcode or car number that came back in your case number, you can print the NPR manifest, which will also print out your barcode. Now, please take note, the car number barcode will only print from this screen over here, because I mean, you could have had a scenario where you uploaded a manifest, you canceled the manifest, you uploaded a new one, you did an amendment, you canceled it, then you did a new manifest again. So the system's like, oh, which one do you want to print? That's why we ask you to select the latest one on the menu and print the NPR manifest from here to print the barcode, not from the registration screen of the manifest, please. Right, so if I click on the paperless release, look out for pop-up blocks. I can see the reason for rejection there. But the preferred method is to click on description and then just scroll down to see, my bill of entry number for the 5355, declaration not found. Then also HDR message sender, where value is this one over here. So if you ever see this one, value not in customs code list, that's because this profile that I'm utilizing at this moment is not registered for manifest reporting. That's why at the beginning of this message or this video, I said you can have more than one profile. So the profile I'm utilizing here is not registered for the manifest reporting, and that's a type of error message that you would get if you are not registered on any kind of service provider system. And also, if it's not an item that is on proceed to border, I would get a very different type of rejection based on that one over there as well. Right, when I get the rejections, I can go back and fix it. Now, per the rejections I'm getting here, declaration not found, I wouldn't try resubmit the manifest to try and fix this because I'd have to go to that entry on my system, get a proceed to border there, and then my manifest will be successful. If, say, for instance, you're doing a amendment manifest that you have a proceed to border and you'd be like, oh, before the driver goes through, I would like to change the driver, or maybe the truck broke down, so now I've got to load a brand new truck. So this is the original, assuming that this says proceed to border. Bear with me on that. I'm going to copy the LRN number here. So the LRN number is all these 0000 numbers over here for a manifest, which also matches the message number. This is what customs asks you to say if you're doing an amendment or a cancellation. Select the original entry. I just double click on it, or you can use your mouse and slowly drag it across. I prefer double click twice. It highlights the full set sequence, and I can copy. If there was a dot or forward slash in between that, like the date, for instance, I can't just highlight the whole thing here by double clicking. I double click and it will stop where there's a space. Or like where there's a 10, the colon would stop the browser from highlighting the colon 57 because that's just basic browser functionality. I can just hold in shift, press the end of the sentence, and it highlights it for me. If there's no funny characters in between, you can just click on a full number like the manifest number on top, that number over there. It really helps with the highlighting copy just in case you miss a zero. Because if you miss a zero, you'll get another rejection. For each rejection you get, customs are building transgression lists even for MPR manifest, so please be wary of that. All right, I can see the file's locked even though it's rejected. Not a problem. Click on the button and it unlocks the file without a username or password. Now I can just go to the print menu right there, make my necessary changes to say, okay, this was 52, not 51, save it, and then I can go ahead and EDR declaration, submit my amendment. Now, you can't submit an amendment on a rejection. It's got to be a proceed to border, right? And then I can click on create. So I can see there's my amendment, and I've chosen to do an amendment on a rejection, which obviously is also going to cause a rejection. So please make certain you're doing amendments on your proceed to border. If you don't have proceed to border, then technically fix the entry as an original. So I've got my amendment there. And if I go to the EDR send and receive screen, I can see that the original amendment, if my amendment was on proceed to border and I realize I've got to cancel it or do another amendment thereafter, please take notes. Once the amendment is successful with customs, you don't have to refer to the first proceed to border here and use that number again, because you always want to use the latest number in sequence of the successions where it was successful. So I used the latest number, assuming that this was on proceed to border as well, and I realized, oh, I've made a complete mess up. It hasn't reached the border just yet. Maybe I can rather do a cancellation because the goods aren't going to go through. Put in my number there, and I can already see I've got my cancellation. Now, if I had to submit this at the same time, assuming this was proceed to border, this pending upload here would go through as the amendment for that proceed to border, but the cancellation would immediately reject because submitting these at the same time, customs would validate and stipulate we can't find the previous one you're looking for. So you'd need to send another cancellation in sequence. So do send them one by one in order, not multiples. So once I do send this through, I'm just going to show you the rejection that if I had missed a zero or whatever the case may be, customs in this case will turn around with the rejection saying The previous number cannot be found, so therefore you cannot amend it. For HDR document to be amended where value is the previous serial number, no previous document can be found by this ID. And also, again, you didn't fix your first issue, and again, you're not registered for MPR manifest submissions under here. Please log on to the correct company where you are registered in order to submit. For those of you who just do have one profile, you won't get this error. This is just a nice elaboration to show you what type of rejections you get and how easily they can actually be read from our side to define what the issue is. And I was expecting this before I even got the rejection. Alrighty, cool. I believe that once that is done, Customs will provide you with a CARN number. So don't insert a CARN number yourself. It's got to be associated by Customs. So when you do click the printing print menu on that item right there for the MPR manifest, you'll get your CARN number based on the CARN number associated by Customs with your part load. So this will be part load for number 1 going through the border, and then you submit the next entry, part load number 2 or final part of shipment for the convoy. Each driver has their own manifest with their driver name and passport number or details on their manifest to successfully go through the border, where SARS will just scan the barcode. If everything's in order, that's when they're marked for arrival. And when the truck's about to leave, if there's an inspection, they will go through it. If there's payment, they'll go through that as well. Once they're about to leave, then they'll give you the entry exit notification. When you do receive an entry exit notification for the manifests, EasyClear has a scenario under the history that you might see entry arrival notifications on top and also your latest status, but your entry exit notification might fall just before that. If that is the case, please take notes. EasyClear has a very strict rule. We're not going to amend the EDR statuses. We never do. We are not actually allowed to touch those. So unfortunately, if you ask us to ever touch an EDR status, our answer is immediately going to be no. If Customs sends us the entry exit notification first, be it a millisecond before the entry arrival notification, and it lands up on our system in that order, that is the order we're going to process in the order that we receive it from Customs. So if you do find that you do road freight manifest, but your entry exit notification, you're struggling to print that because there's no barcoded manifest here to print, I do have a secondary portion where I'd very much like to attach the entry exit notification barcoded manifest here. It will just run a certain circumstances events to pull the latest successful MPR manifest through, where I can give you a provision just to print it from the side if you're finding that you're having a bit of trouble printing the entry exit notification barcoded manifest for your client. Alrighty, I believe that does cover all the scenarios for MPR manifest reporting. If there's any questions, I will leave the floor open for now. Otherwise, thank you everybody for joining.